Hey everyone, and welcome back to Pop Culture Expose. I have missed you. It's been a couple of months since I've dropped a new episode, and I want to start by saying thank you for your patience and your continued support. As some of you may know, I've been taking time off to grieve the loss of my mother. She was my biggest cheerleader, and getting back behind the mic today and going back to this topic has been emotional, but it also feels like what I need to be doing. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for sticking with me. Now let's talk about what's ahead. This marks the second half of season 1, where we had shifted from the broader history of pop culture to the darker underbelly of celebrity gossip, and more specifically, the shadowy figure of who shaped so much of it from the sidelines, Enty Lawyer. In the last episode, we peeled back the layers on the men in his inner circle, Mr. Him and John Doe, and the role that they played in building a cult-like corner of internet gossip. Today, we shift toward the women who have been tied to him, whether by choice or manipulation. We're diving into true crime Jenn, her strange involvement into C-Dan, and the trail of receipts she left behind. We'll unpack the Daily Beast's first explosive article exposing Enty's inconsistencies. We'll talk about his bizarre and failed run for Congress, the court case with Diana Jenkins, yes, that Real Housewife, and how all of this leads into the start of his connection with Cassandra Crose. This is the woman who would later go from being Enty's closest confidant to the one only people brave enough to speak out. As always, these are allegations, but I have the receipts, and there's a lot of documentation backing it up. You don't have to take my word for it, but I encourage you to keep listening, stay curious, and as always, question the narrative. This is Pop Culture Expose, and the story's just getting messier.
It's Danielle, aka Danny Gossip Girl. I've got the scoop on Bravo and Blinds. Let's go. When the stars come out to play, you know where to stay. Tune into the buzz, it's the talk of the day. From Bravo shows to the latest celeb spree, we've got the tea, come sip it with me. Danny Gossip Girl, Pop Culture Expose. We're spilling all the secrets every single day. From Hollywood lights to the gossip blinds, catch the news, don't get left behind.
John Nelson, known online as Enty Lawyer, built a following through his gossip blog Crazy Days and Nights, C-Dan, but over time, his influence expanded beyond gossip into true crime. His partnership with True Crime Jenn, one of the most significant collaborators he has had, until it all fell apart. What started as a working relationship on Patreon and podcast episodes turned into yet another example of Enty's manipulation patterns, something that's now being echoed by multiple women who've spoken out about his behavior. Let's break it all down. For years, True Crime Jenn was a key figure on Enty's podcast and Patreon. She helped him deep dive into true crime cases, lending credibility and passion to topics that Enty, up until then, had never been known for, and there will be a pattern with this. Their true crime content became a staple, drawing in dedicated audience willing to pay for exclusive episodes. Not me personally, I didn't listen to those ones. Just not my personal taste. Didn't find it credible. But Jenn, who seemed to genuinely care about the cases they covered, brought in her own following, boosting Enty's brand. But things changed when Enty suddenly ghosted her. At first, Jenn was confused. She had been a part of the show for years, and there was no warning, no explanation, or so we thought. Then on Twitter, she publicly called him out. She accused him of shutting her out of the podcast, continuing true crime content without her, and refusing to compensate her for her work, which he does so often. She stated outright, "He ghosted me," and continues, because of the material, in my opinion, because he doesn't want to compensate me or give me any credit for work ideas. He needs to be honest. This revelation sent shockwaves through their shared audience. Many fans had assumed her absence was due to a mutual decision or scheduling conflicts, but Jenn made it clear this was Enty's decision alone. He cut her out, took the work that they had built together, and continued on without her. And it wasn't just about creative differences. Jenn's later tweets suggested a deeper issue, an uneven power dynamic where Enty kept control. He decided who got to be on his platform, and when they were no longer useful, he discarded them. Jenn's experience was not unique at all. As more women spoke out, a pattern began to emerge. Enty often sought out women in his audience, engaging them in ways that felt personal, whether through DMs, calls, or even in-person meetings. Me being one of them, although nothing inappropriate happened. But let's just say it was free work. These relationships started off as friendly or collaborative, but they often follow a predictable cycle. Number one, love bombing and attention. He would make women feel special, like they were a trusted insider in his world. Number two, escalation and control. Once trust was built, he would steer the dynamic, sometimes requesting personal information, trauma stories, or even worse, private videos. Number three, discarding, ghosting. Eventually, once he no longer needed them or they pushed back, he would cut off contact with no explanation. And you know who backed up a lot of these claims? None other than Mr. Hims, aka Tally's fiance, who said, "I'm quite familiar with how many DMs you must be receiving. Good and terrifying, I'm sure. I went through this also, not with John, with Tally, aka the him. I was the secret girlfriend when he died. Folks can be really mean. My experience is almost identical to yours," meaning Cassandra. Men have seen Dan lie a lot. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I know all about John's wife and kids and his relationship with Jenn. I helped cover it up. Multiple women have now shared eerily similar experiences. One described how he messaged her out of nowhere, making her feel chosen, only to later pressure her into sharing deeply personal details. Another woman said he used her as a sounding board for his gossip, but turned cruel when she questioned him. And then there was the most disturbing revelation. Women who said Enty manipulated them into feeling dependent on him, only to abandon them. As Jenn went public with her fallout, other women felt empowered to share their experiences. A Reddit thread recently surfaced detailing more allegations from former fans, women who had once looked up to Enty, me being one of them. One woman recalled how he initially seemed charming but quickly began making inappropriate requests. Another said he invited her to collaborate only to use her ideas without credit. One of the most unsettling accounts came from a woman who revealed that Enty, while discussing crime cases, had made comments that suggested an obsession with violent content. In her words, he was fixated on the darkest details, and the way he talked about the victims felt off. I like it was entertaining to him, not justice. This aligns with another claim that Enty's lawyer's focus on true crime was about advocacy or awareness. It was a business move. With Jenn gone, he simply replaced her, continuing true crime content as if she had never existed. This isn't just about one professional breakup. It is about a pattern of exploitation. Enty has spent years cultivating a cult-like following, drawing people in with gossip and intrigue. But behind the scenes, he has burned bridges with nearly everyone he's worked closely with. True Crime Jenn's story is just one piece of a much larger puzzle, a puzzle filled with discarded collaborators, manipulated fans, and women who are now reclaiming their voices, especially that of Cassandra. As more of these stories come to light, it's becoming harder for Enty to hide behind his anonymous persona, or at least the persona that was anonymous then. The man behind Crazy Days and Nights is no longer just a face-up gossip blogger. He is someone who has repeatedly leveraged his influence in harmful ways. And now, the women who once trusted him are taking back control of the narrative. If you follow Crazy Days and Nights, you know Enty has built his reputation on calling out celebrities for their shady behavior. But in a twist of irony, it turns out he's been hiding his skeletons of his own. The truth is finally out, one voice at a time. Before we dive any deeper, you know the drill. If you're into pop culture tea, internet sleuthing, and peeling back the glossy curtain of celebrity gossip, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, and hit that follow button wherever you're listening. And hey, if you really want to support the show, share it with your pop culture bestie or the one friend who still reads blind items like it's their Bible. All right, now let's get back to the drama. For years, Crazy Days and Nights operated in the shadows of Hollywood Gossip, a website that claimed to expose the darkest secrets of the entertainment industry. And at the center of it all was an anonymous creator, Enty Lawyer. At first, media outlets, including the Daily Beast, treated him as sort of an underground whistleblower, an industry watchdog, revealing hidden abuses and corruption. His site gained credibility as a part of a larger conversation about Hollywood power structures, especially during the rise of the hashtag #MeToo movement. But by 2017, something changed. The Daily Beast, one of the very outlets that had given him legitimacy, turned on him. They began exposing misogyny, fabrication, and dangerous smear campaigns embedded in his blind items. This marked the beginning of a major shift in public persona. So how did Enty go from the so-called whistleblower to manipulator? Let's break it all down. In the early years, Enty positioned himself as a fearless truth teller, someone willing to expose the Hollywood machine. His blind items often played into existing rumors about power-hungry producers, corrupt executives, and out-of-control stars. He thrived in the internet's golden age of anonymous gossip, presenting himself as an entertainment lawyer with first-hand knowledge of the industry's dirtiest secrets. Publications like the Daily Beast initially saw him as a unique rogue figure, unlike mainstream outlets, which had to adhere to journalistic ethics. Enty was unrestricted. He would say what others wouldn't, and for a time that worked in his favor. His site became a must-read for anyone obsessed with Hollywood gossip, blending conspiracy theories with half-truths and occasionally real scandals that later made headlines. But as Enty's platform grew, so did the platforms. By 2017, the media landscape had changed. The rise of the hashtag #MeToo movement exposed real, horrific abuses in Hollywood, ones that had been whispered about for years. Suddenly, mainstream outlets were doing what Crazy Days and Nights had always claimed to do, holding powerful figures accountable. This should have been Enty's moment, but instead, his site began facing a bit of scrutiny. That same year, the Daily Beast published a semi-scathing article that revealed a darker side to Enty's operation. The piece highlighted how his site had morphed from an industry watchdog into something far more sinister, a place where dangerous misogynistic narratives thrived. The article took a closer look at how Enty frequently targeted women, particularly actresses, with unverified and damaging blind items. These weren't just rumors about cheating scandals or feuds. They were calculated attacks, often painting women in the industry as unstable, promiscuous, or complicit in crimes without a shred of evidence. The most damning part, his accusations rarely held up. The Daily Beast noted that while real investigative journalists worked to corroborate Hollywood abuse stories, Enty threw out names recklessly, often harming innocent people in the process. What the Daily Beast uncovered wasn't just bad gossip. It was deliberative narrative manipulation. One of Enty's most infamous tactics was seeding doubt about women who were coming forward with real abuse allegations. He dropped lines implying that certain actresses had slept their way to the top, or that they were complicit in Hollywood's darkest secrets. And when major scandals broke, instead of siding with the survivors, Enty's site would often work to discredit them, pushing the idea that they had ulterior motives, that they were liars, that they were no better than the men that they were accused. And don't get me wrong, at times did he try to fight for some survivors, but a lot of times it was the opposite. This shift in tone became undeniable in 2017. While journalists were fighting to give victims a voice, Crazy Days and Nights was working overtime to muddy the waters, and people noticed. All for clicks, perhaps, or somebody paying for him. Who knows? For years, Enty thrived in the murky gray area of the internet, but now he is being called out for what he truly was, an unreliable narrator who weaponized rumors for clicks. After the Daily Beast article, the tide started turning against Enty. Mainstream outlets stopped citing his site as a source. Celebrities and industry professionals began speaking out against the blog's reckless accusations, and the public, especially those paying attention to real issues in Hollywood, began questioning why Enty's blinds always seemed to target certain people while protecting others. For many, the 2017 article was a wake-up call. It showed that Enty wasn't some underground truth teller. He was a manipulator, someone who crafted blinds to not reveal the truth, but to control the narrative. Unfortunately, I wasn't one of those that understood the truth at that time, unfortunately. And once that veil was lifted, it became harder and harder for Crazy Days and Nights to maintain the credibility it once had. So what happens when a so-called whistleblower gets exposed as a fraud? In the case of Enty, it led to a slow but steady decline. While Crazy Days and Nights, of course, still exists, unfortunately, its influence isn't what it once was. The public now understands that Enty isn't some fearless industry insider. He's just a man behind a keyboard in a small little closet, spinning stories for attention and way more sinister things. And the irony, the very media that once boosted his credibility, like the Daily Beast, ended up being the ones to take it away. So more to come on that. What happens when a gossip blogger with a shady past decides he should be in charge of making laws? Yes, true story. In 2008, John Nelson, the man behind Crazy Days and Nights, made a bizarre attempt to enter the political world, running for a congressional seat in California's 26th district.
Nelson, and we're at the Ventura County March for Our Lives, where we're joining all these high school students and other students who are sick and tired of having guns in the school. Part of my campaign is to have the national standard be like California's standard. We're going to ban assault rifles. We're going to make background checks mandatory. We're going to close.
His campaign, a total joke. He barely made a dent, securing just 3.7% of the vote, but hey, great job for trying. but not before pulling some truly insane stunts along the way, including scamming moms at his daughter's school with fake Taylor Swift tickets. Well, not fake Taylor Swift tickets, but with a fake purpose of how they got it, to get signatures for his campaign petition. So was this run just a desperate PR move, a classic case of a man with an inflated ego, or was there something even shadier going on? Let's break it down. First thing first, why on earth did John Nelson think he could run for Congress? By 2008, Crazy Days and Nights was facing backlash. More people were starting to realize that Enty Lawyer wasn't the truth teller he claimed to be. His site had gone from fun gossip to full-blown misinformation machine, and his credibility slipping fast. Then out of nowhere, Nelson announced his candidacy for the California's 26th district. No political experience, no real campaign strategy, just a vague promise to fight corruption. The same man who had spent years anonymously spreading Hollywood lies now wanted us to trust him to clean up the government. It was laughable from the start. Now, this is where things get truly wild. Nelson needed petition signatures to qualify for the ballot, but instead of doing things the honest way by, asking people to support him, he allegedly tricked parents at his daughter's school into signing. How? By dangling Taylor Swift concert tickets in front of them. Moms desperate to secure tickets for their kids unknowingly signed his campaign petition, believing they were entering some kind of giveaway. But surprise, there were no tickets. It was just a ploy to get names on the ballot. When people realized what happened, outrage followed. But by that point, Nelson had gotten what he needed. He made it onto the ballot, and that all came out to light in the article by the New Yorker titled "The Man Who Gossiped Too Much." The stunt was so absurd it felt like something straight out of a Veep episode. Once on the ballot, Nelson's campaign was dead on arrival. He had no funding, no real proposals. He wanted to fight the NRA, and absolutely zero public support. Even among his own party, no one really took him seriously. By the time the election rolled around, Nelson secured just 3.7% of the vote. That's less than 6,000 people in a district of over 400,000 voters. He was demolished by the incumbent Democrat Julia Brownlee, who walked away with almost 60% of the vote. It was complete and utter embarrassment. And feel free to check it out on Instagram. John Nelson for Congress. For some reason, he still has it up. So check it out. So what was really behind John Nelson's doomed campaign? There are two main theories. It was a PR stunt. Maybe he thought running for office would give him legitimacy, a way to clean up his image after years of running a sleazy gossip blog. If he could slap congressional candidate on his bio, maybe people would forget about all the lies and blind items. Number two, it was an ego trip. Nelson always thrived on attention. From making up Hollywood scandals to pushing wild conspiracy theories, he lived for chaos. Running for Congress, that was just the ultimate power move. Whatever the reason, it failed spectacularly. And after that election, Nelson faded back into obscurity. His political ambitions completely crushed. And then, boom, there comes Patreon. What fun timing all. At the end of the day, John Nelson's congressional run was just another bizarre chapter in long, shady history of Crazy Days and Nights. The same man who built his brand on manipulating narratives tried to sell himself as a serious candidate, and voters saw right through it. And let's be honest, if you have to scam moms with fake Taylor Swift tickets to get support, maybe you shouldn't be running for office. it comes to legal battles, Enty Lawyer has made a career out of pushing boundaries, spreading rumors, and hiding behind the anonymous nature of crazy days and nights. But one person who isn't going to let him get away with it? Diana Jenkins.
Any affiliation with Jeffrey Epstein, the cease and desist letters that she just sent out. What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Blake McHugh, and welcome back to another Shared With News update. Before we get into how Diana is addressing all of this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and ring that bell so you never miss any of our future videos. Well, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills star Diana Jenkins is on the defense, trying to protect her reputation from rumors swirling that she had ties to Jeffrey Epstein and his sex trafficking ring. So according to Page 6, a person close to Jenkins said, quote, "She wants to end these lies about Epstein and being a madame." They went on to say, quote, "Right now, she's really focused on shutting down all that's been said about her, and her attempts to shut them down include sending a series of cease and desist letters to podcasters, bloggers, publications, even former housewife Dana Wilkie." Now, Page 6 obtained the documents which show that Diana's attorney demanded that Wilkie retract a series of allegations that were made in a YouTube post last year. In that post, according to Page 6, Dana accused Diana of being a madame who, quote, "sex trafficked young women across continents and connected celebrities with prostitutes, among other nefarious claims." Diana's attorney writes in the letter to Dana, quote, "I write to demand that you immediately remove these false and defamatory statements and issue notices acknowledging that you had no factual basis for any of the statements and implications made about Ms. Jenkins." Now, Diana vehemently denies these allegations, writing on her Instagram that she will not sit back and allow people to smear her name. She writes, quote, "I have instructed my lawyers to take whatever action is necessary to remove these false statements and to pursue justice from those who have been spreading lies about me."
The Real Housewife of Beverly Hills star and socialite took legal action against Enty, shining a massive spotlight on his methods, his sources, and the very nature of Crazy Days and Nights itself. And if that wasn't messy enough, Mr. Him, the infamous contributor to Enty's site that we covered in the last episode, was tangled in the drama as well.
I don't particularly want to talk about the book tonight because it took a lot of money, a lot of time to achieve what I did, but it backfired. Ready to order? All these rumors started. It was like an offense of my character.
I'm not like an international sex trafficker and mad over high-class prostitutes. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
It's honestly so ridiculous that I can't even believe that actually it could have caught on.
Diana Jenkins, known for her lavish lifestyle and philanthropic work, with my word butchering, was no stranger to rumors. But when Crazy Days and Nights posted blinds suggesting she was involved in human schmafficking, she had enough. Enty's post insinuated that she was part of a powerful underground network exploiting vulnerable women, a claim that spread like wildfire across gossip forums and social media. To Jenkins, these accusations weren't just defamatory, they were dangerous. In 2022, she filed a defamation lawsuit against Enty, demanding accountability for what she called outright lies. She argued that the claims were completely false. Enty had no evidence to back them up. His site was knowingly spreading harmful misinformation. This wasn't just about Crazy Days and Night. This was about a pattern of reckless gossip spreading with real-world consequences. And the Mr. Him connection, now really here's where things get even messier. Him had contributed heavily to the site's biggest conspiracy-laden blinds, including stories on Dan Schneider, Jeffrey Epstein, and even Diana Jenkins. Many of the most extreme claims about Hollywood's alleged dark side came from posts under his name. But once Jenkins took legal actions, questions arose. Did Him provide those blinds? Was he one of Enty's sources? Or was he just another fabricator caught in the web of lies? In the fallout, Him disappeared from the site. As we all know, his involvement became murky, just like John Doe did as well. Now, there was lots of fallout as this case got exposed more. So Enty had always operated under the veil of anonymity, but this lawsuit put his methods under scrutiny. Number one, he rarely vetted his sources. This case highlighted he often took anonymous claims at face value and posted them as blind items without fact checking. I have to say, I appreciate Dumois' efforts along this topic, and she has extremely improved over the years. Sorry about that side note. Number two, his legal defense was weak. Unlike traditional journalists who have legal protections, Enty was running a gossip site with little accountability. When forced to prove his claims, he couldn't. Number three, it proved how dangerous gossip culture had become. What started as fun Hollywood gossip had escalated into accusation of international crime, showing just how reckless Crazy Days and Nights had become. While Jenkins was able to clear her name, the damage had already been done. Her name was now tied to unfounded trafficking rumors, a lasting stain despite the case being dismissed. Note that just like me, Dana Wilkie was a collaborator with Enty, so much so that Diana Jenkins looped her into the lawsuit against him because she had gotten some of that information from him, and they did podcast episodes together. But also like me, she spoke out against him when she learned the truth. So take a listen at just a little part of it. There's much more that she covers on her own podcast and her Patreon that dives in even deeper.
He runs the website Crazy Days and Nights that does the blinds. He also has Instagram. A lot of people repost his blinds as insider gossip or information, although he never says who they're really about until he does reveals, and then he kind of implies who he was talking about. Anyway, a big scandal broke out about Enty. He was doing really well at the time I was collabing with him. He was getting a lot of momentum in the Bravo landscape. And Dumois started to do shows with him, and his numbers that were already very big on Patreon quadrupled. And people believed that, he was an entertainment-oriented attorney. He made up all sorts of different stories, so no one really knew what to believe. But I think a lot of people believed that he, was somehow in the entertainment industry, and that's how he got this scoops that he shared in his blinds. But the truth is, like most anon crowd gossip websites, Enty was just studying news articles, doing deep dive research, and people were sending him content to publish on his website, thinking that he was a champion for women. Well, it turns out that Enty, the character, was nothing like the man who Enty really was. This is right out of The Wizard of Oz, and let's call Enty the wizard. And then Dorothy recognizes, it's just a salesman from Kansas that got sucked in and used theatrics to pretend he was magical and all these things, but in reality, he wasn't. He was just a salesman. Well, turns out Enty's very similar to the wizard in Oz, and Enty was just a guy who was an attorney, but I guess did probate, was out of Northern California, had a wife and family. But Cassandra alleged that he was using Crazy Days and Nights as a way to hook up with girls outside of his marriage.
The Diana Jenkins lawsuit exposed Enty for what he was, a gossip blogger who had taken things too far. It also raised questions about who was really behind some of the most extreme blinds. Was it Enty? Was it Mr. Him? Or was it just a revolving door of anonymous figures feeding conspiracy theories for attention? Was it Reddit? Was it just all BS? One thing for sure, after the lawsuit, Enty's credibility took yet another hit. But as history has shown, scandal has never stopped him before. At this point, we've covered Enty's web of manipulation, how he lured in fans, played power games, and controlled narratives. But one of the most pivotal figures in exposing him, Cassandra Crose. Her journey is different, unlike many others who eventually faded into the background. Cassandra went from fan to collaborator and ultimately whistleblower. This is the beginning of that entanglement. Cassandra first discovered Crazy Days and Nights like so many others, fascinated by the mystery, the Hollywood gossip, and allure of insider information, and really just the nostalgia of it all. She was fascinated by not so much the blinds, but there were certain nostalgic topics that he just seemed to know so much about that she was into. At first, she was just another person engaging with the site. She wanted to treat herself $250 to have a joint podcast episode, as that was something that he offered on his Patreon. So that is really how it all kicked off. She had a podcast, Cassandra Explains It All, where she talks about all sorts of nostalgic topics.
So you actually gave a TED Talk about comedy and censorship of free speech. It's something that I'm very passionate about too. And was it scary to take a stand one way or another on a subject like that that seemed so divisive?
I've never been scared about that stuff. I got beat up pretty bad. If you look at the comments on that TEDx talk, people accused me of being a racist and all sorts of stuff. And so, that's what makes the world go around. Think about the internet is
like Aaron Carter, Family, or all the TGIF shows from back in the day, and then some. And he seems like an expert. But Enty has a pattern, a way of grooming certain followers, slowly pulling them closer, and Cassandra was one of those.
Perfect. So today we are going to be talking about Tori Spelling, who I feel like is an American icon. I feel like her red lipstick and blonde hair is just like timeless and classic, but I had zero idea how truly messy and devastating the entire family history was. So I'm really, really glad that you decided to join me, Enty. Thank you for coming back.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to be back.
I really missed the 90210 phenomenon because I was too young. I know Tori Spelling from Death of a Cheerleader, which was great lifetime viewing. And then she was also featured on so much TV, Malibu Shores, only one episode. I just want to mention it because it does have Carrie Russell, and Mother May I Sleep with Danger, I feel like is where most people first saw Tori that are my age. Also, she did the weird reboot with James Franco, which I suggest nobody watch ever. Scream 2, pretty iconic role because she's playing herself. It's very meta. We love that. And even in Clueless, right? The soundtrack there, Brittany Murphy's dyeing her hair to a song that's talking about being the perfect girl, Tori Spelling. So I love that.
Yeah, and Mother May I Sleep with Danger is now Mother May I Sleep with Podcast.
Yes, yeah, an epic podcast. And I just feel like Tori Spelling is so brilliant in so many ways, and I think that we're going to disagree on so much in this episode because it feels like a lot of people just hate Tori Spelling, and I feel like when you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth, truly, how could you know any other way to live? I'm learning how big of a deal.
So the private messages were starting to begin. Enty reached out, and as he had with other women before, complimenting her insights and pulling her deeper into his world, the illusion of special access, he made her feel important, hinting at exclusive knowledge, giving her little breadcrumbs of validation, emotional manipulation. As with the past relationships with female fans, there were clear patterns, building trust, making them feel irreplaceable, and using that connection to maintain control. Cassandra, like many before her, was lured into a toxic dynamic, one where Enty dictated the rules carefully, constructing a relationship based on secrecy, loyalty, and ultimately deception. Over time, their conversations evolved. Cassandra wasn't really just a fan or collaborator anymore. She became involved. She started helping behind the scenes, and very early on, really within, I think, about 24 hours, and this will be in the next episode, within our episode, he gave away the keys to the kingdom, all the passwords to everything. So she started helping behind the scenes, researching, fact-checking, even contributing to content, and to encourage her deeper involvement. Her role grew beyond just a passive observer. She felt needed. But what seemed like an exciting partnership soon turned into something so much darker. The deeper she got, the more she started to see the cracks, and the more feelings and life began to happen. At first, it was just small things, contradictions in stories, inconsistencies in his claims, and then it became undeniable. She wasn't always so certain that he was really the legal expert that he was, especially when she began to learn of how he would write it, going from Reddit, pulling stories here and there, leaving it broad so that later on, when a legitimate story could come out, he could, pin it from this story that I knew I wrote on this date, from the chicken scratch of piece of paper he wrote on. So she had access to things that others didn't, and she did start to ask questions, but the relationship still started to grow. Cassandra's journey was no longer about Hollywood gossip or nostalgia. It ended up becoming about exposing the truth, not just about blind items and nostalgia, but about Enty himself. In the next episode, we'll uncover how Cassandra went from Enty's trusted ally and also romantic partner girlfriend to his biggest threats. The moment she realized she had to speak out, and the backlash she faced for telling the truth. Because once she pulled back the curtain, there was no turning back. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. And we will continue to get into it even more.
Tune into the buzz, it's the talk of the day. From Bravo shows to the latest celeb spree, we've got the tea, come sip it with me. Danny Gossip Girl, pop culture expose. We're spilling all the secrets every